My name is Østergaard. I'm here working with Marakana. I'm doing a Scrum training, and we did day 1 today. I'm going to do day 2 tomorrow. I come from Europe. I was born in Denmark but grew up in Sweden. And so I continued through school in Sweden, and when I eventually finished my university degree, I moved to Denmark, being a Danish citizen. And this was in the mid-80s. Now this is before any of you were doing IT. But anyway, so the way it was then, it wasn't like, no, it wasn't internet like there is today. People didn't have their PCs at home. So people didn't know what IT was. So I worked in this financial organization, and we were the IT department. We took care of the IT. That was our responsibility. So we went out and talked to the users. We sat with the users, designing screens and so on. And whatever we did, the organization was happy for. And they thought it was like magic because they had no clue what we were doing. So that was our part in the organization, taking care of this. And then I remember when we got our first project leader / project manager, I think it was 1989. And I remember when she came up to me saying, well, you can't talk to the users anymore now. Everything has to go through me. I have to have the helicopter view. So what happens is, well, you kind of lose your sense of responsibility. There were still a couple of projects where we were allowed to self-organize, because you clearly see which way it's going. More and more processes, more and more procedures, less and less creativity, and more telling me how to do it. So after switching some jobs in 2001, I read about Scrum and Ken Schwaber's Black Book, and it was really delightful to see there was other people who thought the same way. Well, it was about responsibility, it was about passion, it was about allowing to take responsibility. So I worked in another company then, another financial institution, rather big institution. I brought in Ken Schwaber in 2004. He held a speech there. We trained together in Copenhagen. And about a month after Ken had been in the organization, I got fired. And that was pretty common for all the first Scrum trainers that there were, that they were fired, because what happens is when you do Scrum, you're challenging the organization, the way you are set up to work, the way you organize work. What you usually have is you have these different layers of managers, each deciding the next layer what to do, and finally telling people in the end, what to do in a big project plan. Anyway, so I started working on Ken. I thought I could maybe do something with this Scrum. So I started as an independent, setting up some classes in the Nordic countries, and then a bank in Australia called me and said, could I come out there and consult with them and so on. And since then, it's just gone quicker and quicker. And it seems like almost every organization is struggling with some kind of Agile now. But I mean struggling, because it is, it's difficult to do. So what tonight's talk was going to be about is why is it so hard to do Scrum? Why is it so difficult? But I've also seen that the first people who came here, they didn't know anything about Scrum. So then I changed my plans a little bit, and then we talk more about what's the fundamentals of Scrum. But then more people came, and they were doing Scrum. So it's kind of, where should we go? And what about the two last people? Are you doing Scrum or?
We're interested in the Agile development, and the Scrum is definitely the one catching our eyes, but not yet.
You're interested in it, but you haven't really done anything.
No, haven't done anything.
Do you know how Scrum works?
Yeah, the basics. No.
You know the basics. Okay. Well, so how about if I go through the basics rather quickly and then move into why it's so difficult to implement Scrum? Would people feel comfortable about that? Okay. So, sorry. Waterfall and opacity. Give me all the requirements up front or it will cost you. Well, this is the basic idea that came in the late 80s, and that we have to find all the requirements up front or it will be really expensive for us. So because in the analysis phase, we build the whole data structure and the infrastructure, the database and so on. So if we don't find it in the analysis phase and we find it later, well, then we have to go back and change everything. So it's really expensive if we don't find the analysis. So what happens if you ask a customer, tell a customer, well, you have to tell us everything you know, or it's going to be really expensive for you to get a new feature. So what is this poor customer going to do? Well, this poor customer is going to throw himself against the wall and say, oh, I got to tell them everything I can think of. So they ramble on about everything. Hey, I might not need this feature, but maybe I'll need it in 5 years. I better say it anyway, because I'll never get it otherwise. So they ramble on, and we get this big specification. And in this specification, everything is equally important. There's no distinguishing between, no prioritization, because we're building the model for all the requirements. So Standish have done a report on failed projects. How many of the features could actually be used? Well, you see, 7% of the feature could always have been used, 13% often, 16% sometimes. And 19% rarely, and 45% of the features never. What's interesting here is it basically comes back, say always and often, that gives 20%. So there's another book, Software by Numbers, which says that 80% of the value lies in the 20% of the features you want. So it would be rather stupid not to build those 20% first, because they have the highest return on investment. Another thing is emergence. Possible to know all requirements up front. We can work harder on the analysis. There will still be unknown unknowns when we get to the project. We don't know what it be, but we know there will happen unknown unknowns. So what can we do about that? We talk more, we write less, but write if you have to. Now this is pretty typical Agile, write if you have to. Well, how much should I write then? Where's the template? Well, there isn't any template. You have to figure it out yourself. Depends on the project, depends on domain knowledge from the people who are going to build this. I just heard someone out here, we had pizza before this meeting here, and someone said they actually paid people on how many pages they wrote in the specifications. So it sounds kind of, kind of silly. What else can we do? Well, we can show software to users. We work in iterations. Well, we've done this, can we get feedback on that, please? How does it work for you? We acknowledge that requirements emerge, that we have unknown unknowns. We acknowledge that, we get the organization to acknowledge that. And we get them to realize, well, that means it's pretty difficult to do fixed price, fixed scope. How are you going to estimate the unknown unknowns? But that's what customers want. So we progressively increase our understanding of the product as we work on it. And this increased understanding we then put in our product backlog. It also has to do with dealing with the way you can define processes. So you have simple processes. I'm not going to go too deep into that. You have complicated processes. This is not specifically for IT. This is just how you box processes. You have complex processes and you have chaotic processes. Generally, you say that complex processes, this is where IT is. It's flux and unpredictable, no right answers. Emergent instructive patterns has to emerge. There are unknown unknowns. There can be many competing ideas of how to solve things. There's a need for a creative and innovative approach. So your job is to make a creative environment and empower people to take responsibility. Pattern-based leadership. Chaotic, well, it's even worse. Complex system has the following characteristics. It's a large number of elements interacting with each other. The interaction non-linear, what that means is you can make a small, everybody who's been a programmer, you can make a small change and it can have a huge impact that you couldn't foresee. The system is dynamic. The whole is greater than the parts. We can't use just the database or just the business logic. We need everything. System has a history. It's built in one time era, but it's continues to be used and developed and maintained in other eras. In retrospective, it could look like if we did just this and this and this, everything would have been okay. But no projects are the same. We also have constraints. Within the system, there are things that constraining each other. So what we do in Scrum here, well, we're trying to bring it down. We're up here in the complex area with IT development. We try to bring it down so it becomes simple. So it becomes simple that we can actually keep our heads in what we're doing. So we're focusing on one iteration. Focusing on the one iteration, that's the main thing. Doesn't mean we don't look at the product backlog, but we'll focus on that. Predictive process, start and plan all requirements, end with all requirements completed. You build a bridge, you build a house or something like that. Scrum, empirical, you start with a goal, some vision, some kind of a desired state for the product. What's the desired state we want for the product 1 year from now? What kind of features does it want? What should it be used for? And you end up with the goals met. Not necessarily all the features that I just said, but the goal is met. So that you work differently there. Some basic truths. I think I'm gonna skip these. I can send you the slides if you want to. For those of you who don't Scrum, I'm going to quickly go through the Scrum Flow here. It starts down in the corner here. Somebody has a bright idea. We're going to do something. We're going to build a new product, or we're going to maintain the product. Whatever it is, we need a vision, or we need a desired state. How is this product going to look out there a year from now? Well, basically, you can close your eyes and say, well, I imagine this product is going to be like that. Has an Italian flag up in the right corner. We're going to go for the Italian market. And it's very important that people are able to change their passwords. Or whatever you come up with a vision. Where are we going to be out there in the future? Now, in order to reach this vision that we have here, who should set the vision in a Scrum, in the 3 roles? Product owner. Because we have the 3 roles in Scrum. We have the product owner, we have the team, and we have the Scrum Master. Now, the product owner makes all the business decisions. There's lots of business decisions to be made. And product owners have, they have the business responsibility. So they set up, what are we going to do with this product? They're also responsible for return on investment, releases, milestones. So in order to get to this desired state of the product, we need to do a lot of stuff. We might do a brainstorming or pre-analysis, or maybe we work with a customer, or whatever we do. We list all the things we need to do to get there in a list. And we call it the backlog of the product, the product backlog. The items in here are called product backlog items. Very often and most commonly is user stories. Who's using user stories? A couple of them. Use cases. A couple of them also. Features. 1.5. Requirement list, just a list of requirements. Anybody doing that? Okay. Okay. So Scrum says product backlog items. Seems like the most popular thing at the moment is to use user stories as headliners in a list. And behind some of these headliners, there might be requirements written or use cases. But you keep kind of headliners as a list. So, now, Scrum says we need to prioritize these based on highest return on investment. So the product owner knows which are the most important features. Which gives us most money. So what has the highest value for us to get finished? But the product owner needs one more piece of information in order to prioritize from highest return on investment. What would that be? That he or she cannot get by themselves. Size or cost. How do we represent cost? Time. We do an estimate. We estimate these features and how long is it going to take? And who are the best to do the estimate? The team. Yeah, the people who are actually going to do it. We've got to use their knowledge. So we get the team together to estimate these things. Once we've done that, we take out a block here, select the product backlog. Basically, based on the estimates, this is roughly how much the team think they can do in a sprint, an iteration. We call it selected product backlog, as I said. We go into a sprint planning, which is a two-part meeting. First part, the product owner presents the selected product backlog. This can also be in the form of a goal or a vision. What do I expect by the end of the sprint? What's the main goal of this sprint? The team asks questions and so forth. The second part of the meeting is when the team builds the sprint backlog. Now the sprint backlog is the description of how are we going to build this. Well, we need to get those database tables, we need to do those stall procedures, we need to have this module that checks this, and we need to have this screen that can do this, whatever that might be, and we need to test and so forth. So they put in here the tasks that we need to do in order to run our Scrum. So this is where the team commits. The team says, how much can we do in an iteration? The team says it themselves. And when you promise something yourself, you're more likely to stick to it than if somebody else makes a promise for you. So the team has committed to work here, and they start working here, going on into the sprint. Now, what happens if 3 days into the sprint, the manager comes? You know what? We need you on another project. Can you come with me, please? What happens then with the team commitment? It breaks. The team doesn't feel committed anymore. So, what if you implement this in an organization? Well, that's how people are used to doing it. Or, you have to give me this report. I have a steering committee on Thursday. Or you either put more work into the team, or you take resources out of the team. Well, you're ruining the commitment of the team. So we better have somebody who's responsible for this process. What would be a good name of a person being responsible for this process? A master. A Scrum Master. So we have a Scrum Master. Now the Scrum Master's job is to protect the process. The Scrum Master's job is to make sure we do everything we're supposed to do in Scrum, which can be very tricky. But that's your job as a Scrum Master. So the Scrum Master does the best he or she can to protect the team, being the team's best friend, solving problems for them, and so forth. Okay, let's say the team moves on here, they work through the sprint here, and they come here, and they have a sprint review. Now, this is a review of the product. The team and the product owner kind of get together to review the product. Is this what I want? Is this what I want as a product owner? Well, what if you change it? Could we get it more light blue background? And the team would say, yes, we can easily do that in the next, put it in the product backlog. It's going to take 2 hours to do. Or the team might say, well, it's going to take 20 days to do. Well, it's exactly that kind of information we want the product owner and the team to tell each other. After they've done that, they start doing some process improvement or continuous improvement. The team goes through through the sprint, what went well, what did not go so well, how can we be better as a team? And they decide something they want to improve in the next sprint. And then they come down here, time to take the next building block from the product backlog and go on. So this is the loop for the product. Inspect and adapt. Inspect and adapt. So you continuously go round and round with feedback and inspect and adapt. Every 24 hours we of course have the daily Scrum, which is the most common implementation of Scrum. Some people even say, we're doing Scrum, we meet every day. Which is not really Scrum. So that's the framework. Okay. This is another example of Scrum Flow. Here's one more. This is a Scrum. This is where the name comes from. This is a rugby game. So what they have the ball in here, and this team here, they try to push this team away to get the ball. And the way the team has to work together to push the other team away. That's how tight we want the team. We want the team to be so tight that they work so much together to solve this, to run the sprint. We're all in this together. It's not like there's 7 individuals in a team. No, there's 7 persons in a team, all responsible for everything in a sprint. So they're all team members. It's not like one is tester, one is designer, one is developer. They're all team members. They're all responsible for all the tasks in the sprint backlog. We're in this together. Doesn't mean you don't have domain expertise in the team. It just means we're all in this together. If you look at risk, well, in a waterfall, you do this upfront specification. You have a beautiful project plan in multicolor, knowing exactly which date what person is going to do what. So it looks like it's very defined, and we have we know exactly what we're going to do. But it is a false security, and then we hand off to design, we hand off to development, we hand off to test, and then time for deployment, and it might go well, but we might miss also, because it's very, very late in the process that we're trying to bring everything together. So it's almost like a surprise party out there. Agile, we acknowledge that it's uncertain up front. But for every sprint we deliver finished functionality, we know what we have delivered and what's left in the product backlog. So it's not going to be any surprises. We always know where we are. We might even cancel the project very early here, because unsuspected things happen. So what is this? Sorry? Silver bullet. Scrum is not a silver bullet. It's not going to come zip, zap, fix your organization. It's hard work.
Kill your vampires.
What?
Kill your vampires.
Kill your vampires, yeah. Werewolves. Kill your werewolves. If the team gets in trouble in the sprint, it has happened that IT people have overcommitted. I heard of one project where they thought they were going to be finished before. Yeah.
Same one.
It must be the same one, yeah, we heard about. Anyway, so if a team overcommits in a sprint, what should they do? Well, very often teams jump directly to number 3, decrease scope. Well, we got to take something out. We cannot make the sprint. We can make the goal of the sprint, but we cannot make the sprint. All the things. So we'll take something out. But they should actually go through in these 4 steps here. So do something different. Can we do this in a different way? Can we structure the information that we're going to store and present and so on in a different way and still reach the goal? So this is where they have to go in and blossom into creativity and see what comes, anything comes out of that. If that doesn't work, well, can we get help from the outside in some way? For instance, we have all these stall procedures we have to do in the Oracle database. We're not very strong on stall procedures. It takes a long time every time we do it. But I know Bob over in the other department. Maybe we can take him out to lunch and hear if he has any ideas what we should do. Or we have this very well-defined Java code that needs to be written. Scrum Master, go talk to the product owner, see if we can get a consultant for a week. So, can we get help from outside the team in some way? Of course, it's up to the team to decide. Number 3, decrease scope. And number 4, abort sprint. There's simply nothing we can do. We will not reach the goal of a sprint. We have to abort the sprint. This is not something teams like to do. Unless it's because of outside forces. It's not something they do. Because nobody likes to say that they will do something and then don't do it. It becomes like an honor to say what you've promised. So there was a person in class today from one of the companies. He said, well, their team, the first 5 sprints, they overcommitted so much they almost burned out. They almost worked like 24/7 because they committed to too much. But they got them to slow down now. Because you're not supposed to work like that. But it's something about IT and optimism. How hard can it be? Well, you coach them, especially if they're new to Scrum, you coach them not to take in too much into a sprint. Because what we want the team to have a success. And then we want them to have another success. And then we want them to have a string of successes. And that's what management also want. They want predictability. So you coach them until you get something more stable. Usually in form of velocity, that you calculate the velocity of the team. The velocity being the speed of the team. The team gets better as they work together. So you should try not to change the teams too much. But failure modes. This is where I was going to start my presentation. Why is it so hard to do Scrum? Well, the organization. This is probably the main reason why it's so hard to do Scrum. Easier in a startup company, but if you go into a big financial corporation or a government organization or something like that. So what we want an organization that fully understands what mechanism that is that drives a product forward in an agile environment. But with self-organization. And how do we achieve that? Well, we have to educate the organization. We have to explain what we're doing. We have to explain it to the different parts and how they should act in an agile environment. We can show results. See, we're doing very well. We have to have an organization who dare to let go. I'm currently working on a case study on management in a Finnish company. And about management before and after Agile. And their fears, what I've seen can conclude so far is, their biggest fear was to let go once they were go into Agile. But they also acknowledge something better comes out in the other end. And they go from managing people to leading people. So managers change from management to leadership. An organization who aggressively remove impediments so teams can go faster. There are especially in older organizations, there are so many processes built up. So it can take 3 months to get a test database. It's usually because they want to make, there's so many people that has to sign off before they can get something. They all want to secure themselves that nothing is wrong in it. An organization that accepts the challenge of organizational dysfunctions. that will surface. So if you just stick to the framework of Scrum, everything that's dysfunctional in the organization will surface up and be exposed. So for instance, let's say we have a team who's working. Now a manager comes and takes a person out of the team. Hey, I need you to do something else. You come with me here. So we take that person out of the team. The team goes through the emergency procedures and decide to abort the sprint. No, we cannot do this sprint now because this person was taken out. Now, this manager who's took out this person, if it turns up the thing he or she wanted this person to do was rather trivial. It was a report for a steering committee or something like that. Well, that could be important, but let's say it was something trivial. Now, this will be exposed to the whole organization, what the manager did. The manager took the person out, the team decided to abort the sprint. So the manager will be exposed. So it better be important what the manager did. Now, if it wasn't that important, the manager, it will be well known in the organization. Now, do you think this manager will be for or against Scrum now?
Against it.
Against it, yeah. Because it just got exposed and surfaced that it was dysfunctional what she did. So sticking to the process make dysfunctional things in the organization surface and it will be exposed. And not everybody in the organization is happy about this. And there are so many misconceptions about this Agile, because we were talking about that just before now, that people say, oh, I don't write documentation, I'm Agile. And these misconceptions, it's really that it demands more discipline to do Agile than to just be told what to do in a waterfall project by a project manager. This demands more discipline to do it this way. The team, what do we want? We want the team to self-organize and take collective ownership of the sprint goal and sprint backlog. They fight impediments during the sprint and in retrospective. So how do we achieve that? Well, we achieve it by the team taking authority of the sprint and letting them do it. And if they're trying to ask questions, what am I going to do now? We push back. We push back to make them take responsibility. So the team should feel empowered, that they're empowered, they're allowed to take responsibility. Team commits to work at sprint planning. All team members feel responsible for all tasks. Team constantly improve. Team works closely together. This one can be hard. All team members feel responsible for all tasks. Usually you put a tester in a team and a tester will say, well, I can't help the developers. I've never developed. I only know testing. And here you say that everybody's responsible for every task. How can I be responsible for developing tasks? Well, it goes like this. Well, everybody's responsible for everybody, because even if we're trying to predict 2 weeks or 4 weeks, there will still be bottlenecks in the sprint. And wherever the bottleneck appears, it's the whole team's responsibility to solve it as best they can. So if development is the bottleneck, it's still the responsibility of a tester to ask the people developing, how can I help? What can I do? And if nothing else, you can always get them coffee to show your support. We're in this together as a team. The product owner, what we want a competent product owner who's able to prioritize the product backlog and create a release plan. How do we achieve that? Well, the product owner who understands this role. I see too often that somebody's appointed product owner in an organization and they don't really understand how much work there is to be a product owner. That's a lot of work. And you have all kinds of stakeholders who want to change what you as a product owner wants. He's a strong person. So the product owner calls the business decisions, takes responsibility for a product backlog, makes a release plan, supports and motivates the team, and listens to all people who have an interest in the product. The Scrum Master, so what we want there, we want a Scrum Master who fully understands the mechanism, again, that drives Scrum towards high productivity. Scrum Master should be able to explain Scrum to the organization. Should be an expert in the Scrum process. Support the team to be more productive in any way. Understand that Scrum Master has no authority. Help team improve the engineering practices. Often automating tests and those kind of things. Not be the Scrum Master who actually does it, but help them get things going. Maybe calling in some consultant or something, whatever is needed. And Scrum working having his or her Scrum impediment list. A list of things, what can I do in the organization to make Scrum work better? And you make a list of everything and you prioritize it. And it's your job as a Scrum Master to implement them. To make sure they get implemented. Not necessarily you doing it, but making sure it gets done. Management, what we want from management. Well, management who supports Scrum is not afraid to let go and aggressively helps team remove obstacles. Many obstacles that surface from the team that makes it harder to go faster are things that only management can do things about. How do we achieve it? Leave team alone during sprint, provide an organizational vision, aggressively remove impediments that team and Scrum Master cannot remove, and challenge teams. You cannot challenge teams. Challenge the team in the sense that you empower them. Teams, what can we do for you? We don't want you to be a mediocre team. We want you to be a really good team. What can we do for you? We want you to be a top team.
So what do you mean by organizational vision?
Well, the vision for where is the organization going as opposed to the product.
Okay.
Where do we envision this department or this organization a year from now? Product backlog. What we want is a product backlog defined by the product owner, sized, estimated, and prioritized. How do we achieve this? Well, product owners, stakeholders, and team work closely together on developing the product backlog. Team estimates the product backlog items. Product owner prioritizes product backlog with a forced ranking based on highest return on investment. Too often I see product owners who say, well, all these are priority 1 and these are priority 2. As long as you get all priority 1 done, it's okay. But it should be a forced ranking. Move on to relative estimation. Relative estimation has seemed to work better. It's better we get better estimates when people say, well, A is twice as big than B. Instead of people saying, well, this takes 5 days. Yeah, no, I don't really know. So we get better estimates with relative estimation. Sprint backlog in a sprint. What we want? Well, a sprint backlog created by the team, estimated by the team, and owned by the team. And progress in sprint is highly visible. Usually with a burn down chart, showing you how we're doing in the sprint. So how do we get this? Well, team estimates the tasks. Team decides how to build the functionality. Team is responsible for updating the Scrum backlog, the sprint backlog. Burn down chart is updated daily. The concept of done. Okay. Well, the definition of done, this was a very good definition of done. And it's just like you say, that because you're doing one product backlog at a time, you can go further. And you don't have so many product backlog items open at the same time. So how do we achieve that? Well, team has the knowledge from A to Z to build a feature. They should have all the knowledge, of course, to go all the way. Team is cross-functional and work as much as possible on one product backlog at a time, just like you said. Done is defined with the product owner. You do it together. Team does not hide undone work. Say, oh, well, we're almost finished. We're 95% finished. Don't want to lose trust with the product owner. Improving engineering practice, which usually means that you have to automate a lot of tests, which I would assume you have done also, because it's very hard to get so far otherwise.
Yeah.
So when whenever you change something, a regression test is kicked in and so on. So what to do to solve the failure modes? Well, follow the rules of the Scrum framework. Show results. Inspect and adapt. There are no final answers. And work on it, just like these guys are doing. You work on it to become better and better. Keep it simple so the organization understands the process. And have a prioritized Scrum impediment list. Have a plan for how to solve the top impediments. You're aggressively working on it. Help organization learn more about Scrum and empower the teams. Again, it comes back. It's about the teams, about empowering the teams. And well, that's basically where my presentation ends. Well, return on isn't just money. It's also return on investment can also be to get rid of technical debt. Now we get rid of all this spaghetti code here, so we're going to refactor it. Doesn't give any money in sale.
It's not money.
No, it's not. No, it's return on investment for the organization.
Okay, so
What's most valuable to do?
Okay.
But you have to listen to everybody, not just sales. To the teams and
But when you say
users.
that sounds
Okay. Well, thank you for coming, and good luck with your Scrum implementation. It's good to hear the three of you from doing so well, and I hope that inspires some of you other people to to get going with Scrum. And that's really what you want: people to be happy at job, taking on the responsibility, and be happy about it, to be proud of their work. I remember it has come to me in the last couple of years because when I was studying in Sweden, there was a cross-functional education, and among other things, it was mostly IT, but we also had a little bit of psychology. And I remember our teacher says, one thing we should remember when we go out there to the computer industry: happy pigs give more lean meat. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good luck. Thank you. And thank you for coming.